When large enterprises face critical business and people challenges, they reach out to these big consulting companies like Deloitte, Accenture, and McKinsey. But did you ever wonder how do these consultants, who have very little idea about the company, get up to speed and end up consulting about what the company should do? The answer is they rely on data. And often in many business problems and in all human capital problems, they rely on people data, in short, people analytics. People analytics is a core part of almost every consulting company, be it McKinsey, Bain, Deloitte, and lately it has moved from becoming an enabler to a product in itself. Hi everyone, I'm Abhinav and welcome to the PeopleBox Analytics Talk, where we invite incredible leaders to go deep into the fascinating intersection of data, AI, and people. Today, I'm delighted to have Japneet Sachdeva on the show. Japneet, a partner at Deloitte, is one of the most experienced person in people analytics in Asia. She's also the co-author of People Analytics Maturity in India report, which we spoke about in our very first episode. In her previous role, she led a large people analytics practice for global clients at Accenture. Welcome to the show, Japneet.
Thank you so much, Abhinav. Glad to be here.
Japneet, talk to us about your journey in consulting world and how did you get into people analytics?
Okay, so I'm an MBA from I'm Kozhikode, and then Accenture was, I was a campus hire for them. They were also looking to build their HR consulting, practice. So I joined what they used to call talent and organization consulting. Joined fresh from campus, and somewhere, along the line, Accenture wanted to invest in this whole talent and organization analytics capability, and we set up a team. We started from basic surveys that were very in, like 10, 15 years down the line, but from there we evolved into more of analytics around machine learning, using more of algorithms, Python and statistics and stuff. And then I think India got me to Deloitte, closer to home, closer to heart. So last 2 years, almost 2 years now, I worked on setting up the people analytics practice in at India. That's the journey been, Abhinav.
That's fascinating, Japneet. A lot of our audience here are founders, are CEOs, HR heads, and people analysts, and they understand that for a company it's a very critical piece. So, Japneet, help us understand why is people analytics such a critical piece in consulting world?
So I'll tell you, Abhinav, two, three things, why it makes a lot of sense. Okay. Number one, a lot of other functions, if you see a finance, supply chain, consumer, for example, they were pretty solid on analytics as a part of their business, right? HR, I mean, fortunately or unfortunately, we were always the softer, practice. So for me, what analytics brought in was that opportunity to say we mean business as well, right? So whenever I have discussions with CHROs, my biggest sort of pitch to them is that, see, this is what gives you the seat on the table, because you can go
Yeah.
back and say that there is a concrete investment, that quantification that HR function lacked. I think that's, to me, the number one, what I see enabling all organizations to do. As a consultant, for me, that's the biggest shift I can bring to my CHR, right? At the end of the day, what a consultant should be able to do as an HR consultant, I should be able to help a CHRO and a CEO to make a better case for their people. Okay, so that's number one, right? To me, it gives you the power of quantification. It gives you the power of sitting on the table and saying, this is the ROI I'm going to get to you for any kind of investment on people. Okay. Number two, I think, as a consultant, right, just staying ahead of the curve, right? That's what everybody else expects from us, right? If we don't do that, we pretty much not sustainable as a business. If I can't stay three steps ahead of everybody else, that's the core part of being a consultant, right? That we are ahead in the curve. To me, that's another opportunity analytics is giving. And gradually we saw, while we started with basis and basic analysis and analytics and survey stuff, we have moved to using generative AI for a lot of stuff in the HR. So we've recently done something on individual performance paths, learning development paths using generative AI. Third, I think a little bit of it's also me as an Indian feels good about it, Abhinav. So while I mean, as India, we are pushing boundaries, right? We are really going ahead and doing stuff that nobody believed we could do, right? So to me, that's also like a close to heart, right? Part of it being as a India consulting practice to say I am pioneering stuff that nobody else has done. So maybe those are the top three, Abhinav, that as a consultant I feel very proud of.
That is so fantastic to hear. I love the phrase that you said that everybody expects us to be ahead of the curve, and just going back to the thing that I spoke initially, that when you go into a company, there are experts there. They are people who have so much of experience. How do you get yourself up to the speed, understand the nuances as an outsider, and are able to bring some out of the box insights to help them achieve the objective?
As a consultant, I feel we succeed only when we have a strong partnership, right? So nobody knows the organization better than the organization
Yeah.
themselves, right? So I think how this whole partnership works, right, between the client and the consultant is one, we are able to provide a little bit of outside perspective to say that sometimes it's okay to just take a step back and say that I know my stuff very well, but what is it that I can learn from the outside world? I think that is what sort of a consultant helps in, because we like it or not, but we would have seen the similar stuff happening across organizations. So that's number one. Number two, I think as consultants, we also spend a lot of effort and time to understand the organization, right? How it works, so that it's both ways, right? I mean, they open up to say, okay, let's see what outside can bring to us, but we also
Yeah.
open up to say, let us learn on how your business is structured, right? What you are doing, so we can also best tell you what will work versus what will not work for you. So stronger that partnership is, right? Stronger that to say that we are working on this together rather than a consultant has come in to help us do something or whatever. Stronger that partnership is, more successful the outcome is going to be.
Fantastic. So 16 years you have been in consulting world, almost a decade in people analytics. A decade ago, people analytics would most likely be an enabler for other human or business consulting projects. Today, it's becoming a product in itself. Today companies are asking you to solve their people analytics problems. How did this transition happen, and who do you contribute towards it?
So I think two three things that have changed, right, which has contributed to generally the growth of analytics and AI. One is the whole tech transformation, right? The whole digital transformation that has given us so much data to talk about, right? And in the people space, I mean, you see the biggest business that's happening in human capital right now is the HR tech stuff, right? All the HR tech implementation, whatever the HRMS may be, right? That's the big one. Now what it's doing is it's giving you a lot of data, right, which we didn't capture before. I think second, the whole treatment of data itself, right? Moving away from simple, just having survey and asking people questions. There's a lot of possibility now to use unstructured data, right? What I generally call proxy metrics, right? I mean, I'll tell you culture as an example, right? So
Mhm.
typically, how would you assess the culture of an organization? Go float a survey. Okay, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
Is it good? Is it not good? I'll tell you, in the past 2 years, I've done 20 culture assessment, one survey, only one survey. 19 of
Wow.
them have been non-survey based. You use proxy metrics, you use more of unstructured data. So if you want to see safety culture in a mining organization, don't go ask people, do you feel safe? Look at the safety incidents, right? So look at,
Mhm.
I mean, so just the treatment opportunities we have, right? How much we can do with unstructured data these days. So, I mean, there's just a lot of possibilities right now on what I can do with data. So I think one, just the data that you start capturing. Two, the possibilities, and I think third, just the general business data progress that's happening, right, has helped people data as well. Now, if you're investing in a data
Yeah.
lake, right, because I've seen while we did this analytics maturity that you mentioned, two things we saw that the organizations either who are heavy in consumer analytics actually picked up people analytics sooner, because now they already
Mhm.
have a data lake set up, they already have
Yeah.
capability to do predictive modeling, which they're doing for your consumers, easy to replicate to people.
Yeah.
Second, we saw all of these big tech companies, right, very good at it because the capability is there, the
Yeah.
appreciation of using data and analytics is there. So I think the overall progress of data and analytics in the business also helped people analytics. So to me, I think those are some of the things that have helped us progress as well.
And this is so interesting that you talk about data and especially the use case of not using the surveys. And I mean, being an employee engagement platform ourselves, we see that there are so many these non-employee driven data that you have, whether in their one-on-one notes, whether in their goals, it's hidden in their reviews, where you can go and identify whether the employee is engaged or whether he or she is more likely to leave. But coming back now to the use cases, Japneet,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Having said that, almost every people analytics expert that I've spoken with has mentioned that your output and the objective that you want to achieve out of the people analytics exercise all depend on the quality of data. At the end of the day, it's the garbage in, garbage out. So when you reach out to these large companies, I mean, it's hard for me to imagine that they have everything in place, all data, all historical data, all at one place, and just ready for you to just crunch numbers and get insight.
Yeah, spot on, Abhinav. And I am yet to come across an organization who has all the data in place. Okay, so it's I don't think so. It's happening in this world, and that's the reality of it, right? I mean, data can fall apart anywhere, right? Data can fall
Yeah,
apart where you enter into data. Data can fall apart where somebody's updating the data. I mean, even today we find those simple errors, right? What is the date format? Is it MMDDYY or is it? So generally, my recommendation, Abhinav, to most clients is that now there are two ways to do it, right? One is you actually invest a lot of time in getting that data right, having a data
yeah,
governance structure in place. And to be honest, some organizations are doing that, right? I mean, data strategy project that I was talking about, we're doing a 6 months just data strategy project, right? Just getting their data right. It's not even getting to the analytics part, it's just getting their data right. So that's one way to do it, right? That you actually, you're I mean, the criticality of data is so important to you that you spend time and money and effort to get it right. Okay, but a lot of organizations, I mean, we're also going towards that whole agile mode, and I want to see something in 6 weeks. So if I tell somebody, I'm going to take, and it takes time, right? Getting data
yeah,
right does take time. Okay, so if I tell somebody, I'm going to take 5 months and tell you just get your data, saying, okay, what are you even doing?
yeah,
So then there are types of organizations where we're not willing to invest, and not, I mean, it's not judgment, right? We want to be quick, right? I don't want to wait for 8 months to see a result, right? So there, generally, I'm saying is give it a first pass, right? Even if
yeah,
you're 70% on your data, what the analysis will at least help you do and see is that, okay, unless I see a dashboard in front of me, I'm not going to be able to tell you also whether this data is right or data is wrong, right?
yeah,
So you need to start somewhere. Is what I say. So a lot of my recommendation is let's go parallelly. Let's do something.
yeah.
I mean, 70% accurate is better than 0%, right? So don't compare 70% to 100%. Compare 70% to 0%. So start somewhere, and then it's an iterative process, right? You'll get to 70, you'll get to 80. And I'll be honest, I'm working with my own CHRO, right? Deepthi, who's our Chief People Experience Officer. We are doing a people analytics project with ourselves as well, okay? And exactly same approach, right? Let's get the MVP rolling out. So we've just rolled out our first dashboard to our business leads. Let's get the MVP roll out, right? Let
Yeah.
them also come back, say this is not right, this is not right. And we saw some major glitches on data, right? Our attrition has significantly gone down from last year. So but at least start somewhere, right? You will not get to the moon and the star at the first time, but at least start, so that's sort of my recommendation on data. Data is not going to be perfect, but that's our life, right? Nothing is perfect, so let's start somewhere.
That is so fascinating. You can see the smile on my face because listening to these startup analogies of MVP that we use and practice in everyday lives to bring the, V1 or V0.1 in the hands of the user as soon as possible, even though it's breaking. And hearing that, these, gigantic consulting firms also follow the same. It's so nice. It's so incredible.
That's the way to go, right? We are in an agile world, right? Let's try,
Absolutely.
fail, go quickly, and get on the next step.
100%. I couldn't agree more on that. And on the maturity bit, Japanese, you authored this fantastic report. I think everybody in my company, every one of our clients that I shared with, they just absolutely love that. So fascinating work there, along with Nitin. The report, you spoke about the, maturity of people analytics in India. Could you explain what you meant by it and, what are the different stages of maturity that organizations typically go through and some of the like very sort of powerful insights that you got out of that report?
Sure. So I think first and foremost thing, Abhinav, that I touched a little bit while I was while we were talking about it is uh, just in the thinking of it, right? Just in the approach and framework of it. we try to go away from just the analytics maturity of it, right? So analytics maturity is your typical, right, descriptive, and then exploratory analysis, and then you go to predictive, and you go to prescriptive. So one thing we focused on is that's just one part of your people analytics maturity, right? What we often forget is that there is an ecosystem around it that will define maturity. Okay, we discuss a lot about data, so that's an important part of your maturity. Some of the softer elements that we generally don't discuss when we discuss an analytics maturity, which are equally critical, right? What I said earlier, user engagement, business alignment. I can create hundreds of fancy chat
Mhm.
GPTs and dashboards and everything, but if my user doesn't like it, if my business feels this is not useful, so uh, I mean, one of the dimensions we also looked at while we were discussing the maturity is how business and the
People.
HR analytics or whoever is managing HR analytics are actually working together. And I keep giving the Google example, right? Google at the time of Laszlo Block, they
Yeah.
were so successful because the business and the team who was managing HR analytics was so closely entrenched. It was almost like a, this is my problem, solve it for me using
Yeah.
data, right? So to me, that was one big thing about the maturity, right? We moved away from saying that, any analytics maturity is not just about analytics, right? It's about a complete ecosystem culture we spoke about, right? Do we have the data culture in the organization? So that's one part of the maturity. Second, in what you asked is how are we seeing India, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, if I broadly look at, we define four levels of maturity, right? We said one is pretty much where you're all over the place, you don't know where data is. Two is at least where you've done some sort of sorting, right? There's some basic dashboards that come through,
Mhm.
whether it's your HRMS who's pulling it out, or at least you've done something, hands on. Three
RBI
is
and all.
where you're more structured and focused in terms of saying, I know what my business problems are. I have some sort of data lake where the data is getting pulled up from. I'm deriving insights that I find useful. And four is where we say that the whole loop sort of closes, right? So there is almost like an automated machinery, right? Where I say, let me take the example of attrition, right? Where I say, so and so is going to leave because his skill group is getting paid higher in the market. That red flag comes in. Either it action orients to the manager to go have a conversation, or it automatically goes to the compensation team to say, you need to give the person a hike in the next year. And it's almost like a self-running machine of sorts, right? Whatever is the underlying, I mean, in certain use cases, even analytics is enough, right? Basic statistics is
Yeah.
enough as well. In certain use cases, you might want to use, AI and machine learning and complete the whole loop together. So, irrespective of analytics, to me, the final state of maturity is to say that preemptive issue has been identified, action has been determined, system or person, whoever is supposed to take the action, it's been generated, and the loop closed back to say we took the action, this was the ROI. So to me, that's sort of
Mm.
the state for. I mean, we've seen. I mean, we were also a little liberal in our rating because otherwise nobody would have landed at four. So we have given people four who at least achieved the complete loop in one or two of their use cases. So whatever was most critical for them, at least they were there.
Fantastic. It's like I truly hope that, with experts like you and companies like Deloitte, who's actually investing so much in this, we see more and more companies moving into the fourth category. And one of the most critical part of business metrics, like you also mentioned, is about, retaining your talent. It's about the turnover or the attrition. Our audience would be super curious to know what happens. What do Japanese do? What do Deloitte do when a large company invites them and partner with them to just solve one problem, which is talent retention? What are the steps you take? What all do you go into? Would love to hear that.
So, two, three things, okay, Abhinav. So, typically, one is a little bit of education process also, right? One is the analytics part of it, right? Okay, so
Hmm.
we'll typically build a nutrition prediction model for them. We'll use some of their internal data to see, what are we seeing in terms of trends of people left in the past? Why have they typically left? We'll add it with some external data. So, for example, I'll give an example of external data. So, skill group level compensation. A lot of compensation benchmark sometimes happens only at a level, for example. And
Hmm.
let's say if I give my own example as a consulting firm, right? We would look at an analyst versus an analyst. How is an analyst paid in Big Four or other consulting firms? But within an analyst, you might have somebody who's doing org design versus somebody who's doing generative AI. Okay, now you
Yeah.
cannot, they are not being paid the same in the market, right? So for us, both of them are analysts, and hence we are putting them
Hmm.
in an analyst competence. So some of that external data we try to sort of marry with the internal data, to come up with almost two, three things, right? One, we'll tell them what are the systemic issues we are seeing in the organization. So systemic issues could be one I just mentioned, right? There's compensation for a particular skill group. Systemic issues could be certain managers or departments as well, right? You will see, and we see both kinds of things, right? We see attrition because staying with the same manager for a long time, attrition because the managers move too frequently, right? So
Mhm.
either of them could come up, as a cause. But that's another kind of systemic issue, right? To say that, either people are not getting enough stability or people are feeling too stuck with the manager. So some examples. So that's one kind of insight we'll give them. The other will also most often go into an individual level detail to say, basis on the model, what the model is saying, what is the likelihood of an Abhinav or Japneet leaving tomorrow, right? I mean,
Hmm.
if and again, you look at all the factors. You look at the performance, you look at the demographics, you look at how are they paid in the market, right? If somebody has a skill that's going to get a 50% hike in the market, then all your parties and culture and experience is not going to hold the person back. So I mean, there are multiple things that you will look at, role flexibility, and basis that we'll tell them at an individual level, what is it looking like. Okay, so that's the analytics part of it, right, which says systemic
Hmm.
issues in the organization, individual level. Then there is, now what do we do, right? How do we action it around, right? So that's one part. We also educate clients as, okay, so how do you intervene? Certain interventions are easy, right? Maybe you are feeling like the onboarding training are very simple,
Yeah.
right? You just
Yeah.
go and mandate it and you'll see the impact. Certain are more complicated, right? So every time, I mean, we also coach our clients to say that just because somebody's coming at an 85% likelihood of leaving, just don't pick up the phone and call the person, are you going to leave? So there's a little bit of education, right? What you want to do. Another thing I felt is, and I've actually lost a couple of attrition prediction projects, Abhinav, because of that, because the expectation is that if we get the model, the attrition will reduce.
Yeah.
That's not what's going to happen, right? So you will have to do something, right? There's an
Something.
investment that's going to go. I mean, what the model is only going to help you is to say that what needs to be done, right?
Yeah.
Where do you need to do? So don't just randomly just. That's one. Other couple of points, Abhinav, that we've seen is also start measuring the cost of attrition as well. Now there
Correct.
are people who are going to leave, which is okay, right? I mean, but like, what is it? What is the cost of, let's say, replacing
Yeah.
an Abhinav versus replacing an Japneet, right? If Japneet is an easy skill in the market, it's okay, right? I mean, we'll find 10 other people to whatever do this work that she's doing. Then my energy doesn't need to be
Yeah.
focused on that, right? So there's a little bit of cost and the criticality of skill as well, right? If there is nobody else who can do people analytics, then you want to keep, I mean, one, the skill itself, second, the demand of the skill you are seeing as well, right? If
Yeah.
it's a growing business, right, I'm growing at a 50% rate and I will struggle if somebody in the team leaves. So the criticality of the skill also is sort of a parameter. It's not just about person leaving or not leaving. So these are typically the things, Abhinav, that we sort of do in an attrition prediction project.
Amazing, amazing. This space is so close to our heart, and I'll talk to you about that as well. But just on to the follow up that when you go into a company to take an attrition project, a large part of your diagnostic must depend on data. So do you only rely on the data that is available to them, and of course the external factors, or do you also create data through either surveys, focus group, or doing things which gives you some external insights as well?
So generally flexible client by client, right? So certain
Mhm.
organizations do are very, I would say, very uncomfortable doing surveys and focus group discussions. Okay, and we've also, I mean, there is a mix, right? We've also moved to some digital platforms, so we've tried new things, to as far as possible. I mean, the objective is as unbiased and honest feedback we can
Yeah.
get, right? The whole point of data is also that, right, that it's telling me something that people are not saying, if I may put it that way, right? There are organizations who still want to do a survey, but I'm seeing more and more hesitation towards, let's not do a survey. And
Yeah.
even if we are using, I mean, we still use survey data and attrition prediction, Abhinav, but typically what we'll do is we'll use whatever standard survey they had done, right? Something they would have
Mhm.
definitely done, which engagement
Yeah.
survey kiya hoga, which experience survey they would have done. So we try to use that, then again, specifically doing another round of sometimes, and again, case to case basis. Sometimes I've seen FGDs really help, right? I mean, sometimes I feel they're all over the place, right? People start cribbing about the food in the cafeteria, and I mean, so that's not the kind of insight you're looking,
Yeah.
right? The food is, I mean, yeah, maybe we can change the food vendor, but I mean, a food doesn't keep you in the organization or makes you leave the organization. How many sources of data input
Yeah.
we use is by client, is also sometimes the availability of data itself, right? If there is a lot of unstructured data
Hmm.
or a lot of non-intrusive data, let me put it that way, is available, then I'll not do a survey. But kai bari nahi hota kuch, right? I mean, there
Yeah.
is nothing, then what do you do, right? Then you just go and ask people. So
Amazing. This whole word of turnover prediction is like really really amazing. And I have two follow-up questions. One is, how long does typically this whole engagement take, especially the prediction one? And I know there is a lot of things to be done after you give a diagnostic report. And second is, what has been like the most accurate prediction that you have seen in all of these projects?
So I think it's an iterative process, right? I mean, the first ML model, predictive model, yeah, you will get in 7 8 weeks, right? That's not too much an effort. Yeah, you can do it faster also, depending on how big, how many functions you are considering, and so on and so forth. So you will get to something in 6 to 8 weeks, right? As I said, right, it's an iterative process.
Hmm.
Maybe the first time around you'll only get to a 60% accuracy of the model, right? uh, the more you keep feeding in the data, the more you keep using, okay, this person left, this person did not leave, or etc etc, the more data you keep in between. I have seen it go up to 92% in one case, which I think is
Wow.
right. Yeah, I mean, I'm not even expecting more than that. So I think it happens with time, but we just have to be patient with it to say that. And again, as I said, we're doing it for ourselves, right? And the way we've thought about is,
Hmm.
it's 60% versus zero, right? Today, I
Yeah.
absolutely have no clue who's going to leave, right? I mean, of course, there's something from the engagement survey you will get, but there's something from what managers are feeling about it. But there is no systemic way to say
Yeah.
that, when I look at my, CHRO, and when I look at my CEO, from their perspective, there is no systemic way to go and tell X business leader versus Y business leader, watch out for these
Yeah.
people. For them, 60% is also a great start. So, I mean, you can start with a 7 to 8 week, is a 6 to 8 week, you'll get a good model running, like a 67%. But yeah, the more you invest into it, the better it will keep getting.
Amazing. I'm just, it's hard for me to imagine that how incredible return on investment it would be for a company who is absolutely at zero, like they have no idea who is about to leave till, of course, the letter comes, to even achieving a 60%, or in the most fascinating cases of 92%. I mean, they would save so much of money. They would have so much of control. They can have contingency. They can have backup plans. Now they can take actions, which is of course all business dollars. Now coming to the most interesting topic, which it was so hard for me to control myself to come to, which is technology and AI. We are a Gen AI company. We are heavily investing in this. You have spoke. You talked about AI. In the previous answers. I'm very curious about, how do you see the whole advent of Gen AI into the people analytics world, and some of the trends that you've already seen.
Great question, Abhinav. And the reason I say, that people analytics was the best place to, kind of capture the AI and Gen AI use cases. They quickly came to, because ultimately people analytics was anyways doing a lot of AI work, right? Now, I see, I see so many use cases out there, Abhinav, and the discussion that I'm having, or the ones that I'm running, because the inherent part of it is again the same, right? It's data, and it's data's, just the form of data has changed. The ability that we have to process the data, LLM has given us, a new sort of life, I would say, for data analysts to, the kind of processing of data that we do. So I see it impacting almost everywhere, right? Culture assessments, for example, right? All this recruitment CV screening, recruitment end to end, right? I was talking about candidate matching, CV screening earlier. We can still use the LLM and customize a little bit basis my organization, my stuff, etc. But just the potential it gives me, like, it's almost reducing a lot of my effort. From starting from a zero code, I'm starting from probably a 8.5 or a 9 in terms of code if I were to reach 10. So to me, I mean, it almost has given people analytics an accelerator, right? I mean, a lot of stuff that I was doing manually, I'm quickly, using Gen AI to do it. I mean, a lot of skills work, for example, we're still doing a lot of work because it's very custom and stuff. But at least that validation, Gen AI
Yeah.
quickly helps you, right? Even a role skill matching, for example, used to be a big exercise for organizations, right? Can I get the skill ontology for my whatever 100 roles that I had? Now you just go to Gen AI, ask, you'll get a basic list. So to me, I'm seeing it as a big source of data, a big source of processing the data. It's opening up a lot of opportunities to actually do more than what I was able to do. So to me, actually, it has opened up a lot of more opportunities to do things faster, to penetrate into more use cases as well, right? Because you need speed, right? You need speed at scale to impact multiple areas. That's what I think Gen AI is giving me.
This sounds so sweet music to my ears, Javneet. One of the very interesting things that we are doing is to solve this problem of data democratization. Using a Gen AI with a very strong access control, we are bringing the conversational, interface in the hands of every employee, every manager, every HR VP, so that they can also ask any people analytics question, about engagement, about, who is working on which projects, what are the different projects being run. I'm curious to know that how do you see the impact of AI on the, bringing people analytics in the hands of rank and file, and how do you see this will impact the businesses?
So I'll give you this first use case that just people analysis in Gen AI that we worked on. We called it fact to insight generator. Okay, that's what we called it. It was simple, right? You upload your Excel sheet of data. I mean, that was the first one we worked in. As you upload the Excel sheet with whatever data fields you have, and you ask us, okay, what was the attrition in past X rate?
Yeah.
Even the descriptive analysis, and I know, I mean, as we keep sort of customizing the LLMs and using more and more of them, we'll go to predictive as well. But even basic descriptive analytics that is not in the hands of a lot of CXOs today, Gen AI provides that.
Yeah.
I'll give you another example. A lot of times the question we heard from CHROs is that, see, I am not going to go look into a dashboard and do the cuts and slices and see
Yeah.
what data is happening. Okay. And primarily for two, three reasons, right? One is how the dashboard is designed. So, I mean, as people analytics professionals also, and that's why, I mean, people keep asking me this question, right? Why do you sit in human capital and do you sit in analytics? And the reason I sit in human capital is because I want to design a dashboard that the CHRO understands. So, okay. So, a lot of part was the user interface, but a lot of part is also that who is it designed for, right? A recruitment dashboard will be looked at by the recruitment lead. Okay, he wants to go into the cuts and slices. Maybe the CHRO does not want to. So to me, the Gen AI is also giving that one layer in between to say, on top of the dashboard or whatever, on top of that data, you can still have the dashboard because it helps, right? It helps with certain
Yeah.
things. But for somebody who wants to look at a 50,000 feet, or for somebody who has a very specific question on something, right? Can I just ask that question and not go into the whole dashboard and cuts and slices? Sometimes, if I want to see, what is my manager attrition from this particular department last year, I might have to go to three different drop downs on a Power BI, on a Tableau to get to that. So those simple questions and even more complex questions that you want insights into, I feel it's kind of providing that user experience,
Yeah.
um, ease of me getting insights, hyper personalized insights. That's another
Yeah.
thing I feel it's very powerful with Gen AI, right? I mean, it's not standard, right? I mean, before this, personalization was happening only at the level of personas. Now we
Yeah.
are saying it's you, right? It's up to your level that we can personalize. So I see a lot of power, right? I'm just from the insights generation perspective. I think there's a lot it can do.
You put it so rightly, Japneet. It's not just data, it's insights, it's actionable insights, and it's hyper-personalized insights. And I think that's the thing AI can do really, really well. And I'm really hoping that there are more companies who are bringing all that into the hands of the users and employees. Probably my last question for today, Japneet. Coming out of this people analytics world and just sitting in the shoe of a CHRO who have so many other things to do, There's one thing that you believe that AI is going to make the biggest impact, for a CHRO. What do you think it would be?
I think I'll go back to what I said, Abhinav. Their ability to be more efficient, more effective,
Hmm.
which gives them a leadership seat at the table, which to me, sort of has been an aspiration that all CHROs should have, right? Why don't a lot of CHROs become CEOs? We keep asking that question,
Yeah.
right? To me, this is the game changer that it's going to be, right? We've never had that, where they actually can talk the business language with ROI, with concrete results. So to me, this sort of is the biggest change that CHROs can expect out of AI. So what we've seen, Abhinav, is it depends a lot on the organization priority, right? For somebody who's hiring 1,000 people a month, let's say, okay, and
Hmm.
we have organizations, they are going to look at how it's making their recruitment more efficient and effective. Okay, for somebody who's let's say more into innovation, okay, that's sort of
Yeah.
their thing. They are going to look at it. How does this provide more research, more content in the hands of my people for them to be able to turn around something maybe 30% sooner, right? For somebody who's
Hmm.
into coding, are my engineers going to be able to generate a code, I don't know, 30% time faster than what? So again, business context, organization context, but there is an ROI around efficiency or effectiveness associated with each one of them.
Again, that's so true. You said, like, the one of the very important aspect of Gen AI is hyper personalization, and that's so true that the impact of AI would also be depends on the maturity and the business of each organization. And I'm very hopeful that the speed by which we are seeing the change in the whole people analytics in Gen AI world, it'll be a very different conversation, if we have it in a few months. But Jagmeet, I really want to thank you for first taking the time to speak with me and give some incredible insights to the audience. But also, I want to mention thank you so much for like changing this career path from being insight provider to the global companies to bringing your focus to India and Indian organization, because this is so important. As India grows so fast, as we bring Indian organization to the world map, Indian leaders, both business and HR, needs to be more data driven. They needs to make more people decision, which are came out of analytics and insight. And you are at the forefront of providing. And I hope, as a technology and Gen AI company, we are able to provide that through the new technologies and all that. Fascinating to have you, Jipneet. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Abhinav. Thank you so much for having me. As you know, this topic is very close to my heart, right? I mean, I believe in the potential of people analytics. So, and as you said, right, being able to do it for Indian organizations is sort of at the heart of it, right? So thank you so much, Abhinav, for having me.
You're most welcome.